happy today to welcome a good friend of mine, Scott Patterson, from the Central Congregation over in Augusta, Georgia, and where he has been preaching for about 15 years now. That's like a lifetime.
Oh, yeah. You know what's so funny is it doesn't feel that way. It feels like, especially with this COVID thing, that everything is new. It really feels like, and I think there's some reality there that when this time is over, I mean, man, we're gonna exit this time with almost a different church, a lot of different aspects and dynamics that we're going to be dealing with. So if there's a good side to that, I mean, I think it's put us all on our toes and kind of
Yeah.
fired us up and forced us to relook at priorities and all that. So, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of exciting in its own way.
We've had to work harder, many of us.
Yeah.
What I found is you've got two classes of preachers, frankly, one that's saying, I'm not doing anything now, and one that's saying, all I'm doing is working now. And I
Yeah.
don't know that either of those are the best, but I tend
Yeah.
to fall maybe in the second instead of the
Mm.
first. It seems like I'm busier than I've ever been. But it's also, I think you and I discussed this through a chat a while back, it's also kind of forced us to look at our preaching a little bit and see,
Oh, yeah.
we've had to watch ourselves a little bit for the first time in a while.
Absolutely. That's something I'd never done that much of, but just now it's routine. It's just you have to do it, uploading all these different videos and being more conscious of how things are presented and how we look and how it comes off. And, then you catch things you never noticed before, little gestures and words you overuse, or just little things that you might not have ever paid attention to, and now it's in your face all the time. So
Indeed. So I've been for years listening to preachers, and when Facebook Live came along, and I started listening to more guys. For years, I've gone to various random web pages and just listened to a guy's sermon or two. But with Facebook Live, and now with this pandemic and so many churches going online, I've even listened to more people. And Scott, I listened to your sermon Sunday, "The Gospel in One Word."
one verse.
One verse, right?
There you go.
Gospel in one verse. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much
Good deal.
for
Good
an
deal.
exciting lesson. And you began with kind of multiple verses that could be that one verse, or that could be one verse that kind of typifies or encapsulates the gospel. I've got a few things I want to ask you. So first of all, where did you get the idea for this lesson?
Well, it's funny. Right now, we're doing a study of the book of Colossians. We finished one last quarter going through Ephesians. This quarter, we got into the book of Colossians. And the idea is we're trying to do one study that all the adult classes are a part of to kind of help us feel like we're more together and really, hopefully, try to be more engaging with what we're doing, because I think a lot of us are struggling to feel together. We're just struggling to feel as if the entire church is on the same page. And so the idea is maybe that, with all these studies we're doing and again, from the pulpit, Bible classes, other little videos that come out where we're diving deep into Colossians, that's going to help bring about some unity and feeling of togetherness. So anyway, I'm going, last quarter I preached through Ephesians. I decided not to do that with Colossians because I didn't want to be repetitive, but I kind of made the promise that if I hit upon a passage I thought really needed expounding upon, or it got me excited, that's what I was going to do. And I did. I kind of got excited when I got into Colossians just early in chapter 1 and verse 13. And it just hit me, that thought, man, this is the gospel in one verse. And I'd never explored that concept of other passages that were very similar, that in one statement, just a short sentence encapsulated the gospel message, and just kind of went from there. But that's how it started.
Very, very neat. So how many adult classes do y'all normally have?
Well, normally we might have anywhere from 4 to 5 different adult classes on a Sunday morning. And right now, it's just one.
And that can be good. I mean, our challenge we're experiencing is we're not having some of our people are not participating in the classes that would normally come to class, but the folks that do are really benefiting from it. So you're going through Colossians and you run across this verse. Incidentally, I preached last night. I actually got to preach live at a church last night.
Oh, wow.
That's rare to get to do anymore, you know.
Absolutely.
And they'd assigned me the topic, the Alpha and the Omega. It was the last lesson in their summer series, and I'm wrapping the lesson up, and I go to Colossians 1:13 because of your lesson. It
Awesome.
took me back to that,
Oh, cool.
and in talking about Jesus as the Omega, as the answer. And so what spurred this idea on? Where'd you go once you got started?
Well, it's funny. I kind of, in thinking about that, so I have a sounding board. About a year ago, I thought I really need to work on my preaching. Our congregation has gotten a lot younger. And I began to realize that I needed to make some changes because there were some different expectations there, some different interests there, just maybe even a very different way of approaching a sermon. And so I put together this kind of sounding board of men and women and old and young, and just to get some feedback. And the two things that came back from that group, especially the younger group, was they said, we love it when you get into a text and you just stay in one passage or you expound upon one verse. And then the second thing they said is, you know what, Scott, we can really tell when you're passionate about something and when you're not. And that was kind of surprising to me. But they just said that you're just a different preacher when you're really excited and you're passionate, and that translates into that lesson and, from the pulpit to the audience. And so ever since I've tried to do that, I switched away from, I think I'd gotten a little bit unintentionally more into how-to kind of sermons, topical sermons. And so I've really gone into textual sermons and bringing out the text. And I've taken notice that if I'm passionate about something, if I'm excited about it, then I'm going to run with it. And so right now, to have a balance between what I did last time, I'm just kind of this quarter, I'm probably going to get into a study of the Christian graces here in a little bit. But for the first half of this quarter, I'm just kind of taking some things that are on my heart that I'm passionate about and running with that, trying to be as applicable as I can. And so that I saw that, I got excited about it, and I said, that's where my head is, that's where my heart is, that's where I need to go this week. But it was born of that process, that feedback.
So the level of connectivity with the church right now is extremely important. I know that's what we talk about, engagement level connectivity, and it's hard to chart, and we're really working hard at it. Those churches are working hard at it, are really working hard at it. And, I can tell that y'all are, but part of that is the passion and energy that we bring as presenters, because it's so easy. Any Sunday, someone singing in a pew can turn us off. But now we know when they've turned us off.
That's right.
Before they turned us off, we didn't know it. But now, when they turned us off, they clicked off. So I want you to say a little bit more about that. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying we're definitely more aware of that. What you just said, that's so important. Who's watching? What's the feedback? What does that feedback say? And I think we've spent a lot of time talking about that lately.
Can you tell me a little bit more about this focus group that you put together? How many are on it? Do they meet once a month, once a year, annually, weekly? By how?
It's funny. Right now during COVID, we haven't been able to meet except just briefly through a Zoom. And but before, when I started this thing, I realized I just had a sense that I wasn't connecting like I felt that I was. And I don't know if you have this phenomenon, but, I don't get much feedback. And if I do get feedback, it's from the same folks, that crew of Barnabases they're always encouraging and they're very sweet, good sermon, appreciate you, But I just felt like for a while, I wasn't getting constructive feedback that was very specific and particular. And I just was hungering for that. Again, coupled with the idea, I could just sense that, man, our church has gotten so much younger, so much faster. And just from the Bible classes and what I was seeing there, their interest, I thought, I don't think we're on the same page. So I started with just a blank slate. And I said, from the way I present myself in the pulpit, the slides that I'm using, the outline in the bulletin, should I have an outline, the topics we're talking about, things we're addressing, the way I present my sermon at the very beginning, the way I do the invitation at the end. I said, look, it's all open. I mean, you won't, and I told him, I was very honest. I said, you will not hurt my feelings. I said, but you don't know how much I will appreciate your honest evaluation. And they were pretty honest.
The danger would be you put this together and you put on this committee, all the Barnabases in your congregation. Did you purposely put some people on it that you knew would be likely to be critical and more
no
critical in their
Barnabases.
approach?
No Barnabases.
I hope they don't watch this now, because now they're going to think, well, why did he put me on? I'm not a Barnabas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I literally consulted the guys here on the staff that I work with, and I trust their judgment. And, again, we're all at different, stages of life, different age groups. And so I say, hey, what are you hearing? Who do you know? If you had something like this, who would you put on it? And again, men, women, black, white, young, old, and people that, without getting too political, kind of, I know they're kind of a part of this group within the church, and they're very much involved with this group or this activity. And I chose people that because I know their character, I knew that not only were they going to hear some things because their ear was to the ground, but I just knew their character. They're going to be honest with me.
And agree or disagree, it's going to be helpful to hear those voices, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to the sermon. How long did it take you to write it?
It's funny. This one came really quickly. If I start with an idea, you probably know this, but if I start with an idea, man, in a few hours, it's just going to go. But if I'm having to start just from a total blank slate, no idea, what am I going to preach on this week? It could take 6 to 8 hours before I'm, and then I almost feel like I've obsessed over it and spent too much time, which I think is possible.
So how do you physically put a sermon together? Do you use paper, a computer, notebook? Yeah. Do you let it resonate in your mind and eventually start writing? How do you do that?
Yeah, so if I'm, and now I'm doing so much more expository preaching, so I'm going to immerse myself in the text, which is, it might start in the morning when I'm brushing my teeth and I have, the audio Bible going and just playing that text and listening for keywords. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at that passage and I'm going to get out, a notepad and my pen, and I'm going to diagram sentences and look at words and define it. But then, I've usually by that point got an idea and where I want to go. And so to kind of shortcut things, I open up several browsers. I go ahead and pick out the theme of my slide, the images and the visuals of it. And so I'm working with a Keynote on Apple, PowerPoint basically. And so once I get the kind of the theme, the colors and everything down, I open up the notes section below and I just start writing through the notes. And I've got several windows open on my browser. Like for instance, one is I've got Google, because I'm Googling stuff all the time. And then I've got BibleHub.com, where I use the parallel Bible, looking at different translations, And then I'm going to look at openbible.info, which is a great topical Bible. And I'm searching for, some keyword, some thought, and just all the verses that have to do with that. And then finally, I'm going to have another window where I open up a wonderful little website called Unsplash. And it's beautiful images, free pictures. That was another change, by the way. I was one of those guys that was a death by PowerPoint guy. And I had so many slides. I had so many images on my slides. And boy, did I quit that. And now I just have several beautiful, simple slides that might have one verse or one image. And like I might have the one picture, but that, repeats with several different texts. So I might not even have it, maybe 6 slides, maybe 8 different slides during a presentation. But they're very attractive. They're very beautiful, high quality photos, simple image or a text, nothing more.
So as I watched you preach, I noticed you had a device in your hand. What are you carrying with you? What's up there in the pulpit? I
have an iPad Pro. And, sometimes that'll actually have my notes and I'm operating off of my notes. A lot of times, though, I'm still carrying my little printout of my slides and presenter notes because I end up practicing my sermon at home, and I'll write so much in the margins and stuff like that you can't really do that with a PowerPoint. And so I always carry that paper copy with me. But then again, especially in Bible classes, I might just have nothing but that iPad, and I'm operating off of the iPad.
Very neat. So back to your sermon, the gospel in one verse. What was your, in your opinion, what was your best point?
Well, I loved how that the intentional language is so there in that verse, and it talks about that he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness. And I keyed on that idea of what does it mean, to be rescued? Well, it means
you had a great illustration there.
Oh yeah. And I talk about the fact that, rescue means that you can't save yourself, and you don't launch an all-out rescue unless the situation is pretty desperate, right? But I thought about this, and I'm very poor when it comes to doing illustrations in a sermon. And to be honest, I went through college, and I remember my Bible professor years ago at Faulkner. I mean, we really didn't even highlight that much in those days. We talked about, hey, let the Bible illustrate the Bible. And that was the idea that, if you want to make application, we'll say, well, Elijah experienced this. This is kind of like what David said, and let the Bible illustrate the Bible. But of course, now we're so narrative driven. We love stories. And that's what people remember, and really connects us back to Jesus preaching and teaching. Yeah. So I've tried to do better with that. So I think that was my best moment. I came up with an illustration about how we don't always value the gift that's given and the cost of it. And I talked about that.
Watch. It stayed with me. I remember it. Very well done.
Yeah, that you have a friend came into some money, gives you a watch, and you don't recognize the name, and it's kind of bulky, and you think, man, this is not my style. And so you kind of just set it aside. After a year, it's been in a drawer. You think, I'm going to give this thing away or re-gift, or, maybe Google it, or not Google it, but Goodwill it. And maybe someone says, hey, that's a...
Oh, so time out here. Yeah. So in my mind, I was thinking you were going to say Rolex.
Oh, no.
But you didn't say Rolex.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Rolex is common. What are you talking about, man? That's like a $5,000, a Patek Philippe. Those suckers go from like 25,000 to 100,000. That's what the NBA stars wear.
So second time out. So
yeah, there you go.
Did you have to look that up, or did you know that?
Well, I had just saw basically some kind of article that week where I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was LeBron. Maybe it was somebody else that had a Patek Philippe, and they were talking about how expensive that thing was. And so that had stuck in my mind. And, the fact that it was it's unassuming. I mean, it's not a name. It's a very small,
But see, what that did is it made the illustration better.
Yeah.
Because if you had said Rolex,
yeah,
it would have been the expected and the common. Yeah, it's a valuable thing. But when you use that word, it kind of drew me back to it. So thank you. Good, really well done.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you could preach it over again, what would you do differently?
It's really funny. I don't know that I would do anything differently, because I felt really good about that lesson. And to be honest, that's rarely the case.
I understand.
I mean, I always end a lesson, and I'm standing there during the invitation thinking, oh, I forgot a point, or I skipped this really important thing I wanted to say, or I misspoke, and I'm just trying to hide that in my expression as I'm there during the invitation, and I'm just shooting myself in the foot, just feeling so bad about that. But I actually felt like, I'm usually, before I get up and preach, I'm just giving it to the Lord, and I'm asking the Lord to bless me and to loosen my tongue and put his words in my mouth, and it's for his glory. And I just really try to humbly give it to him. And that was all, Brother Winkler at Faulkner. I mean, if he impressed anything into me in those classes on preaching, it was that he would say every sermon needs as much preparation as preparation.
Yeah.
And so I've never preached, but that I didn't pray in the pulpit at the beginning of my lesson and pray in the pew before I ever got in that pulpit. And so, that's just something. So but I came off of that one feeling like, man, the Lord bless me. this was a good experience. I mean, I think he was really with me. And so,
Fabulous. So, what was your reaction to the sermon?
Again, everything's so changed. I mean, we're a congregation that normally pre-COVID, we'd have over 400 and something people there. And now 100 people, as we've tried to start this thing back. But I did have some good feedback. And actually, there were a couple of people who are on the sounding board that were there that particularly kind of made a beeline and said, "No, I like that. That was good. That was what we talked about." And so I was like, yes, all right.
Well, man, thank you for spending some time with preachers today, talking about preaching. It's kind of fun to do this. Appreciate you. Appreciate the good work you do. And, I hope you'll keep it up. And I imagine there'll be some guys out there that might want to know, more about this focus group. I hate to say focus group again, but know more about that if they wanted to. Where would be the best way? How would be the best way if someone wanted to get in touch with you? Facebook here or what?
Someone could just email me at minister@visitcentral.org.
Very good. All right, man. Thank you. Great to be with you. Hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Be well.